Okay, so we'll take a look at a few examples trying to apply the side angle side congruence theorem. So in the first couple of problems, it says decide whether enough information is given to prove that the triangles are congruent, specifically by using side angle side. Right now, that's the only theorem that we have in order to prove that triangles are congruent. As you'll see in chapter 5, there'll be kind of quite a few theorems that we could possibly use. But don't forget that you have to have two sides of one triangle congruent to two sides of a second triangle, and the included angle between those sides of the two triangles are congruent. So problem 1, here's what we're given. And basically, you can kind of trace it out. Here's what I have in the triangle on the left side. Side, angle, side. This angle is included between the two sides. Let's just say I have something like this. This is not side, angle, side. This would be side, side, angle, or the other way around. The reason why I read it like that is there's a side, and the very next thing that you go to, if you're going from left or right, basically, is the side, not the angle. So this would be side, side, angle. Here I have side, angle, side, or I can go like this, side, angle, side, angle, side. Yes, that's enough information. So that's enough information to prove that the two triangles are congruent by side, angle, side, specifically because the congruent angles are included between the two sides. Okay, and then on example number 2, besides this side being congruent with this side and this side being congruent with this side, you might say, no, that's not enough information because there's no angles congruent. Okay, just because we're done with previous chapters doesn't mean everything that we've gone over in those previous chapters don't hold true. These two angles are vertical angles. They are congruent. So you have to remember that. But kind of like this problem right here or this triangle, these two triangles cannot be congruent by side, angle, side because these two angles are not included between the two congruent sides. Let me just try to show you with different colored pencils. So here's this side congruent with this side, just to kind of color coordinate things. And then these two sides are congruent. These angles aren't made up of the red and blue sides. So those two triangles are not congruent by side, angle, side. So no, and then the reason could be something like the angles are not included between the two congruent sides. Okay, and then for these next two examples, I basically have the same directions, I just didn't write them out. I want to decide whether these two triangles are congruent, specifically by side, angle, side. And then on number 3, kind of like on the first example that we were going over, you might say, well, I have two sides in one triangle congruent with two sides in the second triangle. No, because there's no congruent angles, but these two angles are vertical angles. Those two angles are actually included between the two congruent sides. So these two triangles are congruent by saying side, angle, side. So yes, and then the reason is what I went over orally. And then on number 4, you can look at the tick marks that are given. You see that this side is congruent with this side. These two angles are congruent. You might say, well, that's not enough. It's only something like side angle or just angle side. But here's something else that you have to consider. This side is a side in both the triangle on the left and the triangle on the right. This side is congruent with itself by the reflexive property. And then if you wanted to, if you are not sure why these two triangles are congruent, you can break them up and draw them separately. But here's two sides in one triangle, congruent with two sides in the second triangle, the triangle on the left and the triangle on the right. This angle is included in between the two congruent sides in both of the triangles. So yes, these two triangles would be congruent by side, angle, side.